What if I told you there was a Sonic game that has been forgotten and is never talked about? One that definitely doesn't qualify as a mainline game. A game centered around decoration and creativity that predates other games that we think of as pioneering the genre of design. Today I'm here to introduce you to Wacky Worlds, a game with Sonic on the box that was by most standards considered a failure, and it was the launchpad for a Sega program that ultimately went nowhere. Have you ever been in the middle of a menial everyday task and then absolutely out of nowhere, boom, a memory unlocks? This is exactly what happened to me one day while I was doing the dishes and listening to my favorite band. A bass line struck me and it reminded me of this. I ran into the office and I asked my husband, an avid retro game enthusiast and Sonic fan, "Do you remember that game with Sonic where you decorate a house and make music?" He looked at me confused, and it quickly became apparent that he had no clue what I was talking about. While looking perplexed, he began helping me Google and try to find the game. We searched all sorts of things like Sonic in a ship game, decorating game with Sonic, Sonic with planets, making music Sonic game. I tried Googling every element of the game that I could remember, and I started to think, is this lost media? I knew the game existed. I could see it so clearly in my imagination. Sometime later that day, I had an aha moment and I remembered a word: world. I ran back in the office. World, try Sonic World. That was not the name of the game at all, but it got me a picture that I recognized, and from there we were able to figure out Wacky Worlds was the answer I had been searching for. Wacky Worlds is a unique game that almost operated like an animated scrapbook. If you're familiar with the 16-bit art style of the Sega Genesis, you'll recognize and feel nostalgic instantly when seeing these animated stickers. You could choose between different worlds, and in each world there was a set background as well as a sticker book to choose from, and musical choices to arrange that best match the theme. While there are preset items and music for each theme, you can also use objects and music from the other worlds and add them to any of them. There are customization options for nearly every sticker. You can change the color of nearly every section of the objects and choose whether you want them to be moving and animated or standing still. The music is also able to be customized. You can change the tempo and choose which of the instruments are playing at any given time. These factors, along with a wide variety of options of samples, allow for tons of customization in the music. There are other simple game mechanics such as a reset and undo option. Sonic is basically here just as a cameo. He flies you from world to world, and 4 other Sega characters also make appearances in this game. Tails, ToeJam, Earl, and Ecco the Dolphin all make appearances as animated stickers to be used in the levels. Ecco the Dolphin was another game for the Sega Genesis, a game where you play as a lost dolphin looking for his pod, being separated from them by a typhoon. These games were notoriously difficult, being basically an underwater maze. Don't forget about this game, it'll come up again later. ToeJam and Earl was a game centered around 2 alien rappers who had crash landed on Earth. You play as one of the aliens at a time and explore maps to collect pieces of their wrecked spacecraft and try to escape back to their home planet. The funky music in this game reminds me so much of the music in Wacky Worlds. More on that later. This game has a way of making you feel like you're designing your own game level, even though nothing is really happening with the scenes and characters on screen. It gives room for your imagination to take root and for you to come up with your own stories about the scene that you're creating. I thought initially maybe one of the reasons I couldn't find the game was the fact that my family had the Sega Channel growing up, and that maybe Wacky Worlds wasn't exclusive to Sega Channel, which would limit the availability and number of people who could have played it due to the high subscription cost at the time. At the time, it was $15 a month with a $25 startup fee. In today's money, it would have been a $50 startup fee and then $30 a month. My family was by no means wealthy in this time period. We lived in a small house in a less than great neighborhood, but my dad was just a huge nerd with a hopeless fascination for new technology, especially when it came to video games. From 1994 to 1998, the Sega Channel was one of the first online game services. It worked through your cable company using a coax cable where there were several games, demos, and even cheat codes available through this service. I remember having to set the TV to a certain channel, plugging in the bulky cartridge, and only being able to play through the TV in my parents' room, where I had to sit so close to the TV it felt like my eyes were crossing. The Sega Channel had around 50 game titles to choose from at any given time, and the titles were rotated out weekly or monthly to give new options. Many people praise Sega for being such an innovator in online gaming. Not only was the Sega Channel praised for for its innovation at the time, prior to this, Sega had attempted an online system using phone lines, and after this, the Sega Dreamcast was viewed as one of the first successful online gaming platforms. In an IGN article, Levi Buchanan credited the Sega Channel with its role in the development of the modern gaming and content delivery services such as Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network, stating, "Sega and the entire industry learned important lessons from the Sega Channel. Sega was still committed to the idea of downloads and online as evidenced by the Dreamcast SegaNet. You can also see the DNA of early services like the Sega Channel in the modern portals of the Xbox Live Arcade and the PlayStation Network, where demos are now a staple. It's hard to believe that online gaming took root and had its beginnings in a console that we think of as being prehistoric to online gaming." After all that information, you may be thinking to yourself, this game must have been on the Sega Channel. No, it wasn't. Wacky World was actually a part of a much lesser known Sega project, and it was viewed by most as a complete failure, the Sega Club. In the late 1980s and the early 90s, there was something going on called the Console Wars, the main two factions being Sega and Nintendo. During this time, Sega launched a crazy ad campaign suggesting that Nintendo games were for babies and that Sega games were for the cool older kids and teens. Just look at these commercials.
16-bit sports action. You can't do this on Nintendo Genesis. Does. Genesis. Does. Genesis. Does. Genesis. Does. Genesis does. What Nintendo does.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do? What if you don't have blast processing?
By 1994, Sega had decided that they had been alienating the younger audience and launched the Sega Club with the release of Wacky Worlds. The game came along with a large mouse that plugged into the console and worked as a simplified 3-button controller. There's limited information out there about the Sega Club in general, but I've seen articles that claim that the mouse controller did not release in the US, but I know I had one. I looked up pictures of them, and there's no doubt in my mind I had one that looked just like this. Also on the box art for Wacky Worlds, it clearly says, includes mouse. There was a small library of games released for Sega Club, and I only had 2 of them, one of which I know I could only play on the Sega Channel. These games included the Berenstain Bears Camping Adventure, Bonkers, Crystal's Ponytail, Ecco Jr., Math Blaster Episode 1, Richard Scarry's Busy Town, Scholastic's The Magic School Bus Space Exploration Game, Sesame Street Counting Cafe, and of course Wacky Worlds. And wouldn't you know it, the other game I remember playing just as vividly on my parents' bedroom floor was none other than Richard Scarry's Busy Town. Just looking at this game, it really fires up nostalgia in me, and now when researching for this video and playing this kids game in its entirety, I'm convinced that I just played the demo for Richard Scarry's Busy Town over and over again while it was available on the Sega Channel because I only remember one level. When playing the full game researching for this video, I was a little alarmed when playing as the firefighter, as the dialogue is a little too intense for a game aimed at 4-year-olds. Just listen to this.
Jump! Jump! We'll catch you!
Another one of those titles should look familiar. Remember Ecco? Yeah, this is Ecco Jr. with a Lisa Frankified Ecco on the box, and significantly simplified gameplay with a more child-friendly message. As Ecco Jr., you go on simple collecting missions, and the complex mazes have been simplified. Many of these titles fall under the umbrella of edutainment, being made for young children, and other games in the Sega Club being math and science themed, like the Magic School Bus Science game and the Sesame Street Counting game. In 1995, however, Sony entered the console wars with the release of the PlayStation and completely disrupted the market. I'm only speculating here, but I think this is the reason that the Sega Club abruptly ended, as Sega focused all of its efforts on the Sega Saturn to compete with the PlayStation. You start as Sonic on a spaceship, and you fly to what planet you'd like to make a scene on. The planets always reminded me of Star Fox 64. When I was playing these games, the N64 was also out, and I didn't play them until they had already been out for a few few years, and I continued playing Wacky World for many years after its release. Each planet is themed. There are 6 planets, including the spooky planet, an underwater planet, a medieval planet, a jungle one, a space one, and my personal favorite, the dollhouse. In this part of the video, I want to just go over some little Easter eggs and things I enjoy about the game. In the dollhouse, there are these little paintings you can put on the wall. One of them is obviously Sonic, but I've wondered if the other ones are Easter eggs for other Sega games too. Let me know in the comments if you recognize either of these. When I was in the music creation, I realized that I had completely forgotten there is a set of music tiles that don't go to any specific scene, and they are so good. Just listen to this. Here's what they sound like all together in the scene. Am I the only one that gets super nostalgic for Sega Genesis music? Something cool about the magic hand is there's little Easter eggs like this. When you press it in the spooky level, it'll make little ghosts come out, even if that object doesn't have a special animation. When I was a kid, for some reason, this jungle babe was the height of femininity and beauty to me. I thought she was so cool, and I wanted to be just like her when I grew up and became a jungle lady. The design elements in the game are pretty straightforward, and the game was designed with young children in mind. The controls are simple and basic. You control a magic hand, which has a few different functions, including moving items, destroying them, and the magic one that activates a special animation. As a kid, I always imagined that this is Sonic's hand because it looks just like his glove. The models are really fun, and I always enjoyed the people and animals. You can change their colors and backgrounds, turn on and off their animations, and when they're in their adornment mode, they look pretty different. At the bottom, you have options to turn off animations, restart your scene, or go back to the world menu. If you choose to destroy your scene or revert back to the default one, a band-aid appears over the icon, and if you press it again, it will undo. The last option in the bottom menu is the best part of the game in my opinion: composing music. As a kid in a musical family, this was my favorite part of the game, and I would spend hours making songs for my worlds. The songs are separated by tiles in a vertical column, and each one is about 2 measures of the song, 4 instruments at a time that could change based on the theme that you use. Customization options including turning off and on instruments, changing the tempo on a slider, or using a special riff for an individual instrument to make that instrument the star of the music tile, and changing the color of the musician's theme and instrument. Just like the stickers, the music tiles go along with the scenes or planets that they correspond to, but you can use tiles from any world and even use one instrument from a different world, or all 4 instruments could be different, making for a lot of customization options. Speaking of music, not many games have music customization options like this, and it seems to be a really unique feature to have in basically a digital sticker book. I went through all of the credits on this game, and interestingly enough, nearly none of the staff that worked on Wacky Worlds has worked on any other future games but one person, Jonathan Miller. When looking into his credits, I found out that he only worked on one more game after Wacky Worlds and not many before, but he was the developer for Gems, the Genesis editor for music and sound effects, a Sega Mega Drive sound driver program. Gems was used to create music for over 200 games for the Sega Genesis or the Sega Mega Drive. This program was the golden standard for Western game developers in this era of the early 90s. This a new system that allowed musicians to plug in their instruments directly to the program to input their songs, rather than using a keyboard and mouse that must have felt incredibly foreign to musicians. Interestingly enough, Gems was also able to introduce a new feature for music that could change the pitch or tempo based on the conditions of the environment. For example, the music speeding up if your character was low on health, or new music being added to reflect a new enemy or boss appearing on the screen. It can't be a coincidence that the creator for this acclaimed audio software was responsible for the game in which you have so much control over the music and the ability to adjust the tempo. Unfortunately, it seems that Jonathan Miller left the gaming industry in 1999 as the change to 3D modeling was too difficult and too much to learn. He described it as a sea change in an interview. Oh, and remember how earlier I said the music in ToeJam and Earl sounds like the music in Wacky Worlds? They're composed by the same guy, John Baker. Unfortunately, he did not bring his funky talents to many more games. Much like the other staff on this title, he has a very small list of credits. Just a personal opinion and speculation on my part, but it seems that a lot of the game industry staff couldn't hack the end of the console wars. The introduction to 3D gaming proved very difficult for them. In my my search for other games similar to Wacky World, I was eager to find out if there had been any other decorating type games prior to this game. I was unsuccessful in finding much information about this. I was seeking to prove a point about how this game predates games that we commonly think of as pioneers in decorating games like The Sims and Animal Crossing. I know those are much different because they're interactive, livable worlds, but the decorating feels similar. As I said, in my search, I didn't yield results I was looking for, but I did find an article comparing Wacky Worlds to a 1992 Nintendo game, Mario Paint. I was intrigued to look into it, and there were definitely similarities, but Mario Paint is much more like a digital coloring book. From what I can tell, the pictures don't move, making it much less like a decorating game. There's also a really cool mode in Mario Paint for making your own drawings into animations, which is awesome. I've seen some really detailed animations made in the game. Mario Paint was also operated using a mouse that plugged into the SNES, much like Wacky Worlds. Since Mario Paint is not specifically targeted for small children, there's more complex controls and mini-games. Something fascinating that they have in common, though, is there's also a music-making mode in this game. The music composing in this game is much different than the Wacky Worlds composition system, but I just need to show you something. In Mario Paint, there's 15 instrument samples to use, and they're notated with different icons, including 8 melodic sounds, 3 percussion sounds, and the superstars 5 sound effects, including a Yoshi sound, a dog bark, a cat meow, a pig oink, and a baby hiccup. And I am here to tell you they are iconic. Just listen to this. Songs made in the composition mode can be played in the animation and coloring book modes too, just like Wacky Worlds. Sorry for the little aside on Mario Paint, but I thought the music was just too goofy and amazing not to share. Could one speculate that Sega took some of these ideas and used them in Wacky World? I suppose so, but I think that there was a lot of one-upsmanship going on during this time of the console wars, and Sega definitely did a lot to make Wacky Worlds different and unique. Back to Wacky Worlds. This game was such a formative part of my first experiences with gaming. Having a game to play as a kid with no failure or game overs was a joy, and I loved the creative aspects of it, the music and the designing. Please let me know in the comments if you've ever played a game like this growing up, or have a similar game that you played that you remembered years later. I'd love to hear your stories. Well, there you have it. All you ever needed to know about the 1994 Sega game and its ill-fated timing and all the reasons I adored it as a kid. Subscribe to see more videos like this. I have many more coming soon and I'd love to share them all with you. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope you do something today that makes you happy. See you later. Bye!